Hi folks, welcome to Disability Landscape. My name is Mark Knudsen. Today we've got Trisha Kahlberg who's hosting. We haven't seen you for a while. Trisha, how are things going?
Yeah, just still keeping busy with my improv, my theater, so I'm excited to be here today.
Right, and we'd like to first start off by, we kind of want, this is kind of like a cheap way of doing Nielsen's ratings, but we want to find out where you folks are watching us from. Now, we don't need to know if you're in your recliner or anything like that. But what we do want to know is, are you watching us from our YouTube channel, Disability Channel Minnesota, or are you watching us through Community Access? And if you're watching us through Community Access, we are on a variety of community access systems. All we need to know is the channel number and the city you are from, and we will know, where you're watching from. And if you could send that info to our email, disabilitychannelmn@gmail.com. Once again, disabilitychannelmn@gmail.com would be great. You remember that, Trish? You remember our email?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Well, let's get right to our guest that's gonna keep us going for the next 25 some minutes. I want to welcome Shannon Paul.
Hey.
Welcome. Who has you are involved in a variety of media outlets. I will say.
Thank you.
The ones that I do remember is the Jason Show.
Yes.
And then My Talk.
Yes, I am currently at My Talk, and I was previously at a variety of radio stations in the Twin Cities that no longer exist.
And that's all.
So I'm glad I'm still here because they're not. So it's all good. Yeah.
So how long have you been in the radio?
Oh my goodness, I haven't done the math in a while, but I must be coming up on 20 years for sure.
Oh, have you really?
So I mean, I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. My mom and my sisters and I moved here in 1996, and that was before I thought that I would end up in radio. I had a very interesting way that I got into that, and also the way that I got into comedy. I wasn't necessarily planning on doing either. It was one of those things that, I was a writer, but I was also, I had my typical day job. I was working at a bank here in town, and the comedy came around because I had a friend, and I was one of those people that just like probably your story, and both of you. If you're, you had the group of friends that say, "Hey, you're funny. You should do X, Y, and Z." And I kept saying, "No, I just tell little stories." Right. I just tell stories. I'm just funny with my friends. I'm a writer, like all these other things.
Yeah.
And we used to go to Acme Comedy Company, just go to the open mic, just watch all the time. And my friend Michael Libby, and I say his name all the time because when I write a book, he's going to be in the foreword because he really is. We were watching a show at Acme one night, back when I was in college after I moved here, and he said, "Why don't you do that? You're funny." And I said, "I just tell little stories to my friend." And he goes, "What do you think they're doing? Just make your stories jokes." And it was just the first time that somebody else, even though it may have been information that somebody had told you before, they didn't say it in just the right way that you were willing and open to receiving at the time.
Right.
And it clicked, and I was in a comedy writing class at Metropolitan State University.
Oh, you were? Okay.
And so, but I had a project coming up, and I would have done what I normally do, which is write like a one act or a short story or something like that. That would have been comedic in nature, but it wasn't anything to do with stand up. So instead, I wrote a stand up set for the class. It needed to time out how long for what the class needed. It was like 4 minutes. And I told it in my college class. I was the only one that did stand up, and I didn't die. And so I reworked it and went over to the open mic on a Monday night at Acme and tweaked it and didn't die. And came back the next week and just stayed with it, through all the ups and the downs. And that all kind of worked out. And radio was kind of the same thing. I was in college, and I was writing for a paper that used to be here called Twin Cities Employment Weekly, and I did an interview on some radio personalities at a station in town called KDWB. Was, it was, the morning
Which is still in town.
Which is still in town. It's one of the, I think we're up to it must be close to 70 years that station's been around.
That's been,
yeah. And so if you count, it's AM days. And so I met some on-air talent there, and they're like, well, we were going to say you should come get this this job, but we know you already have a job. Why don't you do an internship? And so I said, okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I did an internship in their promotions department, and then got to be friends with some of the on-air personalities. And they're like, you should come over here and figure out how to do this. And I went, okay, and talked my way into an on-air shift at KDWB, like Sunday
did you
mornings.
really?
Yeah, like Sunday mornings, like 1 hour a week is how I started. And
that's all you need.
Practiced that until, you know, my friend at the time, he was been in this market for a long time. His name's Tony Fly, and he was hey,
yeah.
he's like, I got a job offer to do mornings in Austin, Texas, and so why don't you come with me? And I went, okay. And so 3 weeks later, we picked up and moved down to Austin, Texas, and we're down
So
there.
he went down to
Yeah, so we did mornings in Austin, Texas.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
So
we
this
did
was
that.
before you, okay.
So he had been here, and then we went down to Austin, and like so many radio jobs, we got let go, even though we were doing well. And so we were looking for another job, and then there was a job back in Minnesota. And so we ended up taking this, so we came back. So he's like, you want to move back? I said, yeah, because when I moved here in the 90s, my mom and this was home by then. You know, this is where my family was. So we moved back here, and I've been back here pretty much ever since. So.
Your story is like way different than mine.
Oh, okay.
Because when I went to Metro State, I ended up taking this speech class.
Yes.
I was in teaching there for the urban teaching program. And when I took speech, I was like so nervous. But you just like took off with it, and you're, took it to stand up or whatever.
And it is that I still get, I think I just use nervous differently.
Okay.
You know, excuse me. I'm sorry to your sound person that just had a sneeze in their ear. But I mean, it's because having a little bit of that, that nervous tendency kind of keeps it exciting. It's just how you learn how to deal with that. And for me, it was learning how to channel that and use that appropriately and not have it fuel my anxiety. Because it's so easy to have that be the thing that overwhelms you, is the anxiety side of it. And it just doesn't happen to be how my anxiety manifests. So I was able to kind of channel it and use it to go, okay, that just is energy.
And it was like once you did that step, and then it was like the next step. And
right. And just figuring out what's the next thing that you have to overcome. And then, you know, for me, it's, well, what do you want to use this platform for? What are you going to talk about? What do you want to, you know, who are you as a comedian? And that's what the interesting part of the challenge has been for me recently, is going, well, what do you want to use comedy to do?
Right. Yeah, and that's all most comedians have to do that. They may not realize
that's what they have to do.
That
I
they
agree.
that's what they have to do. Now, I know, because I would go, and that's how we met. By I was doing the open mics, and what was interesting is, before I actually did an open mic, I took improv classes at Stevie Ray's, because what I liked about improv is, well, it got me used to being on stage, but what I like about improv, which Trish knows, which she does quite a bit, with improv, of course, you have other people with you on the stage.
Yes.
So I took the classes, never really got into doing improv, but that's when I got enough guts to start to go into open mics.
I love improv. I suggest that to, if people are trying to figure out, I think it's really good at helping you find your voice and helping you become a critical listener. And learning how to play well with others, because even if you're on a show with other comedians, and I'm friends with some comedians, it still is an individual sport, and stand-up is just different, and I tell people
you're
that
by
all the
yourself
time.
out there.
Yes, and you might be on the poster with other people, but you're still on your own, and it's just a different community, because you still might have friends. But here's a good example. So with my radio job, I used to go to American Idol, the finals and all this stuff. And so whenever you watch American Idol, then you see, like, if somebody gets a golden ticket, all the other performers are like, yay, and all this stuff. And comedy, if you watch Last Comic Standing, it is not like that. It's like I made it to the next layer of Last Comic Standing. I'm on my phone in the corner like, yeah, I made it. No thanks. No, that's great. Because somebody in the corner is going, she shouldn't have made it. Like, it is not always very supportive. And so you have to kind of just get past that.
Trisha and I, that's what we kind of talked about, because she's done more improv and I had done more stand-up. getting into doing the improv, but we were kind of noticing the difference because
a
with
bit.
improv, it's kumbaya.
I was literally
Correct.
like teaching him behind stage before we went on. This is how we do tag outs. This is
Yes.
how we do walk-ons.
Right.
And I'm
It's
like,
about ushering the scene
Yeah.
for everybody. And I have, some of my very talented improviser friends. I'm friends with like a lot of the chief instigators over at Huge Theater, and they do great work. And so whenever somebody asks me, hey, do you want to do this, do you want to teach this improv class? It's stuff I do, but I'm like, no. You need to talk to Joe Bedard and John Gilbertatios and all these other people who are amazing improvisers, because I am a serviceable improviser. I appreciate what you do. And I think when I'm suggesting people take a class, whether you want to be in comedy or not, that's one of the things that I suggest because of the skill set that it gives you. And it teaches you to, when appropriate, take yourself seriously, but also go, I don't have to worry about being silly. I don't have to worry about not, it gives you license to play. And one of the things that I liked about taking it as well, and kind of back to what we're eventually going to talk about today, I don't want to jump forward, but I think that it's really wonderful, because my son, he's 14 now, he's high supports on the autism spectrum.
Yep.
And the last time I took a structured improvisational class, at Huge, it was when he was 6, I think. He was 6, so it's been a while since I took a full course.
Yeah.
But it made me really cognizant of how so many of us are able to have things facilitated because we're able to read body language and these certain visual cues and the way that we connect with people. And, like being able to see, well, they're probably leading into this because I can read this particular physical manifestation. This is the look that they have on their face. I'm accustomed to making eye contact, so I can, they're giving me a subtle hint that it's my turn to go. It made it really, it really gave me pause and helped me think about if that isn't your organic nature, if a lot of those inherent things that we do that our body sits there and goes, clearly they're paying attention because this is what we're doing. If you happen to be on certain, certain support levels on the autism spectrum, why it would be difficult for you, because these are things that you don't inherently do or may cause you discomfort or lots of those things, but there's an expectation from other people. Well, couldn't you tell I was upset because I did these mannerisms? And it's like, no, that's not how I process.
Yeah.
And it really gave me just kind of a little peek into why it might be difficult for him to just navigate certain things when that's not how his brain processes
Which
things.
we take for granted.
Correct.
Of course
Correct.
That, so.
Yeah, there's the empathy portion of that too that people with autism can struggle with.
Right.
And I do improv with people that have autism, and it's sometimes it's not noticeable, but sometimes it can be because might have been a lack of concern where otherwise there would have been.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think that, in the way some of it manifests is that I think that some people that I work with on the spectrum are very good at staying in the now. And so I can watch my son, he's very good at staying in the now and less talented at projecting forward. And so it's harder to get him to go, well, let's think about what's happening 6 months from now. But I could go, well, here's what we need to do to get through this moment right here. And I think that that's part of it too, is that you want to, as an improviser, as a human being, all of these things, you want to be able to go, well, this is why it's useful for you to have the skill set, because you need it 2 years down the road. And he's like, I don't even know what you're talking about, as far as that kind of thing. And so just trying to figure out how to break things down into bite-sized chunks sometimes is been a good skill set for our interactions, is going, okay, well, you need this because of this thing that's happening in an hour, not because when you're 18 you're going to care about X, Y, and Z. I don't expect him to have that skill set right now because it's not important to him. It's hard for a lot of us to sit there and worry about what our future self is going to have to deal with.
How old is he?
He's 14 now.
Yeah, 14.
14 and giant. He's already taller than I am.
Yeah.
He outweighs me by 100 pounds.
Yeah,
he's just a big
I was
dude.
noticing that.
He's a big dude, yeah. And so he's, when
is that an issue? I mean, does he have behavior type?
I mean, he has
I mean, you just got to
He
be
has typical teenage angst manifest through a filter. So and so when with the challenges that I have is that I get all of the, I'm 14, I do what I want, and this and that, but a lot of the emotional pinwheel that you get to talk through, that's not how he processes language, so I can't, so I'm sometimes just trying to suss out what emotion it is. I'm like, because it came out angry, because you're a 14-year-old boy and everything comes out angry first. But are you really tired? Are you really hungry? Are you just
the filter
and I have to wait for him to go right
and kind of process it.
right and go through the pinwheel of, well, what is it really that we're dealing with? And the biggest challenge, and I think anybody that's a parent of teenagers has to deal with it. I just have to deal with it, and some occasionally explosive manifestations, is that it's, I'm his person. I'm his main person, but I'm also the one that tells him no and get in the way and said no more pizza and told him you need to get your act together and help me clean up. I'm also the biggest disappointment in to him living his best life is I'm like, we're not doing that. And that part I think is pretty hard. And, just me having a realistic expectation of just because it's my priority, it doesn't mean it's his.
Okay.
And trying to back up and not take things. I mean, I think any parent does this, but it's really trying to not take things personally when he's being a jerk. I'm like,
because she's got. How old's your son?
Yeah, he's 6.
Yeah. So they're just
6.
jerks. Some days I'm like, I love you, but you are terrible.
She would say that, but he's in the audience right
now.
So,
Mine's not watching.
Yeah. And my 2 kids are young adults, 20, 25, and
congratulations,
29, and that. But so
I'm looking forward to the 20s because everybody just says if you can just hold on, then it's a whole different collection of problems. So I'm just holding on until the teenage years are done.
Right, and it's been interesting the last couple of years because we did become grandparents.
Oh, congratulations!
So wasn't necessarily planned, but it happened, which is great. So we've got a 2-year-old granddaughter.
Are you doing all the stereotypical grandparents things, like all of spoiling the child just to make your children miserable and to get paybacks and all that stuff that you hear about?
I mean, I spoil her, but I don't want her to take some of the spoils I want from my wife and all
okay,
that.
fair enough.
But she's getting all the spoils.
Okay,
exactly.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
So she is cutting in on my spotlight.
You're all like,
hey, this is my. I want.
When do you go home?
Yeah,
Bringing back to when you're talking about behaviors that your son shows, do you have strategies to redirect him? I mean, obviously.
Yes, and I'm continually trying to put more things in my toolkit because things change, and and sometimes I just started working with a different behaviorist, and that doesn't necessarily work with him. It's me on the phone with them, just going, and then we this, and then that, and just looking for other strategies sometimes, so I don't get depleted, or or just sometimes it's just like workshopping. Well, I know he always has a reason for whatever behavior it is, and it just doesn't always make sense to me. So being able to talk to other people that have maybe seen it modeled in other ways and can kind of help me break the cycle, because that's what it is. Sometimes it's, okay, we're in this loop. I'm in this parenting loop, and we end up back here, and what are we doing? Just try to look for other ways to kind of deflect and leave enough space for me as a parent, but also as a human being, to be able to refill my bucket enough that I can parent with the appropriate the patience that I need, just in any sense.
That's what I was just thinking, is the patient level, because when my kids were that age, I didn't have the autism side.
And it's still exhausting. So that's why
that's
why it's very difficult to date me right now, is that I use all my patience up on him, and that's it. So adulting, people that adults that try to come, I'm like, I have no time.
It's a
for
good
you.
way
But
to
they do
eliminate
want to date.
someone.
It's 1-800.
No, kind of thing. I'm like, you can find me. I'm easy to find. I'm just being full disclosure. I'm all like, you need to come fully formed as an adult. I don't parent adults. I parent my child.
If
So
you're not,
if you want an admin, if you want, If you're like, hey, I'm a project, and I like people that are like take on projects, I don't take on projects anymore.
You got your project.
Exactly. He's here because of me. So I need to. That's where I put all of that energy into it. And I also, I mean, for me, it's. I had a director, a filmmaker friend of mine, and we were talking about just a variety of things one day, and I really do live by the, we all get to decide whether our life is a comedy or a tragedy. And if you're,
true.
as performers, you know that if you are a comedy or you are a drama, they might have a lot of the same beats. And so it's just deciding what things do you choose to showcase. So I happen to focus on the funny, positive things, and things get to funny with me. It turns there quicker. That's how I process. So it gets to this, but that doesn't mean you don't have those downturns. It's just not where I rest. It's where I get back here and I process to it, and I can get to the, we had this situation, and maybe it was a meltdown, maybe it was that, but I can get to the thing that I think is funny about it sooner, and be able to tell that story and relay it and be very, honest and open about certain things. I mean, he is my champion, but he also Kung Fu Pandaed me through our closet door one day, kind of thing, over something silly, where I was just like, and he didn't mean to do that, but it was like, no, he didn't mean to. I was just like,
didn't realize his size.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, and I'm like, if this, I wish I had a GoPro. Like if I, like the motion when I went through the door, I'm like, or tell me, that you're all done. That would have worked too, kind of thing. And so, that kind of thing, it does help to be able to process things that way, because you have to have a strategy to process things regardless. So if that's not how you do it, then you have to figure out what works for you. Because if you sit in it, then you'll get so exhausted in any of these parenting situations. You'll get so exhausted that you'll go, what do I do and how do I keep moving forward? And I've had to really work on ways so that I could, like a tea kettle, like just you have to have little mini releases, otherwise you'll end up.
You do. I agree.
Right, and so that's what I look for, is those kind of things.
I can picture that too, because when you talk about infusing comedy and just being lighthearted about it, just with what you're saying with the GoPro, I can literally picture a sketch happening in the
Yes.
If he did this in this situation, what do you do in this situation? How can that be heightened? How can that be funny versus it being like something dramatic?
And there's lots of ways, like you could just put the camera on slow-mo or something, and it was like, that would have been really sad, and that happen. Or you could see me, and I'm like, well, look at that door, man. I've been meaning to redo my closet anyway. All right, fair enough. Put that farther up on the list. The time like I had a little video that I put up that he decided that it'd be really cute to like kick the wall, and he doesn't know his own street, so he kicked a hole in the wall. And before I could even go, look, stop kicking the wall, because he's like, stop kicking the wall, because I said it 50 times, and he thinks it's funny. I go in there, and he's just chilling with his foot in our wall, kind of thing, because he's like, well, I didn't mean that outcome to happen, but we're here now. It's actually kind of comfy, just hanging out. I'm like, no. So I fixed the wall. I've gotten very good at sheetrock.
I was just going to say from your Facebook post,
it's a skill set.
You have that white gooey chalky stuff.
Yes, I got the cog. I have like extra this. I've got tools. I have protective glasses. I bought a mini a table saw. All that, I just add to my skill set and figure it out.
Nice.
Kind of thing. I'll figure it out, because for me it makes sense to be able to do that, because I also try to adapt as quickly as process, because for me having half broken things around or trying to say you can't have anything nice, like I'm not buying a bunch of new furniture because he's a 14-year-old boy, he's gonna break everything. I'm not setting myself up for failure, but also being able to go, well, here's the process so that I repair it and I can move on. It's a good healing process for me. If I just looked around all the time and it was just broken stuff all over my house, I'd be sit there and go, whoa, woe is me, or I can be like, oh, here, got the spackle out, and just
otherwise
turn it into art project.
Exactly.
Otherwise you'd be right there banging your head against the wall. And then you'd have to fix that too.
Right.
So it's like,
exactly.
I can't get too serious on.
No, or at least I choose not to. I mean, you can. I just don't elect to. So
I'd like to see your home now.
You can come over. I'm actually really good at some DIY stuff, so kind of thing. So yeah.
Now with your, because you do a lot of public speaking, also on that. So I would assume you're involved in doing quite a bit of public speaking for different organizations.
I do as much as I can.
Yep.
And part of that, I'm like, are we? Okay.
Yeah, we're fine.
Okay. Everything's great.
We've got one audience member.
Yeah, so we're all good. Doesn't bother me.
Yep,
I'm used
yep.
to it all the time.
Yep.
Part of the reason why I got into that is since I already kind of speak for a living, it made sense to be able to do that. And, I also try to work with individuals that want self-advocacy training, if they want to learn how to speak for themselves. I know that it's very nerve-wracking for a lot of people. And, as a parent advocate, I'm like, English is my first language, and I went to school for this and do all these things. I could understand how nerve-wracking it is for other parents to do it. So if I can help, then I choose to use my time to go and do that. And that's why I go in that direction, is because I can just imagine how hard it would be. And if English was your second language and you're already exhausted because of what you're doing in a difficult parenting situation, all this stuff. So will go and do what I can.
So are you like the person going up to the school every time there's a tragedy with your son, like, don't do this? Or,
No,
like, what
because
kind of
I'm
advocate are
actually,
you?
what I have been very fortunate about is, as far as the educational process, he's been in really good schools.
Great.
The school that we got him in from kindergarten through 6 was a very good, appropriate school. The school that he's in currently here on the north side, it's a great school and they have great resources. But I do work with people that are speaking at the state capitol. I do work with parents just to help them go, well, here's how you can self-advocate if you don't have an IEP and those kind of things and that kind of stuff. And I also host as many of these benefits so that people who want to support these organizations have no problem asking them to support an organization.
Well, as you are familiar with all your media work, we are
at that
time where we have to start saying goodbye in that. So, Tricia, any few comments you want to say before we skadoodle here?
I'm just really happy that you're on our channel today. Me and Mark, too, we're hosting improv workshops for people with disabilities at Gutty's Comedy. And
she's the marketing person.
Right.
I totally forgot to pitch it. Yeah,
got to pitch it. So I think it's so important for us to advocate for people who want to be actors, comedians.
Yep.
Can we, get those people in theater? Can we, let them show and express their skills just like anybody else?
Comedians, dancers. I met some people at an event last night who do a variety of different adaptive dance lessons and those type of things.
We've got some people next month coming on that are involved in dance. So, Shannon, it's been great to catching up with you and informing us. And like Tricia said, if you just send a message to our channel, Facebook-wise, or to our email, we can let you know about our Accessible Laughs Improv Group. So once again, for Mark Knutson and Tricia Kalberg, this has been Disability Landscape.